Hi people. You know, everything is so fast nowadays. Or, well, I'm unsure about the world as a whole, but I do think that's the case for the Burning Crusade. Few dungeons takes longer than 40 minutes, unless you're partying with a bunch of special nuts, or maybe people very new to the game. Nothing wrong about that, my point is simply that most dungeons are fairly fast. And most of the loot is useful. Gone are the days of vanilla itemization. What's this? A cloth item with strength and agility? Well, to be fair, my mage doesn't do much damage with his staff, I better grab that. I'm not gonna lie though, the stats are good, but not for any cloth class. Or how about this one, the Gut Gore Ripper, a dagger you can't even use in raids because it applies a debuff to the boss, or mob, or whatever. Nice. Or why not everyone's favorite, the weapon commonly known as Shadow Strike, or its true name, Thunder Strike. There aren't many items like that in the Burning Crusade. The items are usually thought through, and although they might not be best in slots, they can at least serve as an upgrade in the pursuit of actual best in slots. The weirdest items are leather pieces with parry, I think, which I suppose is meant for rogues in PvP. It won't take too long for most people to gather the pre-best in slot gear in the Burning Crusade. Actually, let's compare the Phase 2 pre-raid best in slot for a Fury Warrior in Classic Vanilla and a Fury Warrior in Classic TBC Phase 1 to get an idea. Things like the Dalren's swords, the Savage Gladiator's chest piece, the True Strike shoulders, the Hand of Justice, the Painweaver band, they were all difficult to obtain, either through low drop rates, high competition, long dungeon runs, or everything in one. If I remember correctly, Hand of Justice had a 2% drop rate from General Anger Forge in BRD, so that's an average of 50 runs per drop. Although this was changed to drop from the last boss in BRD in Phase 5 I think, and they massively increased the drop rate. But you had to do a full run. Anyway, there are no items like that really in a Fury Warrior's pre-bis in TBC. The worst items are the expensively crafted ones such as Dragon Maw. However, if you have loads of gold, that will still be trivial, although expensive. Many items are from heroics, meaning that even though they might be somewhat challenging to obtain, you still only get one attempt per day. After you've done your, let's say 3 heroics where there is loot you need, there is nothing more you can do that day in order to work towards your best in slot gear. As for the raids, a good guild can clear everything there is in 4 hours. Although it is very nice that a lot of items are things you can work towards, such as crafted weapons and gear, badges of justice and reputations, well, it also means that you can usually finish off the grinds rather fast. I'm not saying everyone has a smooth and fast progression to pre-best in slot or even best in slot gear, however, in a lot of cases, you simply can't spend that much time per day trying to get them. Things without time restrictions, such as reputation, normal dungeons, and to some extent crafted items, are usually done within a few weeks at most. And the things that are time gated, well, like I said, you can't spend too much time per day working towards them. Rather quickly, you might find yourself with not too much to do each day. On top of that, something that helps you finish off your best in slot even faster is that Karasan gives something like 22 items for 10 players. Molten Core gave something like 24 items for 40 players, and a significant part of the loot in Molten Core wasn't even good for anyone. Gearing is a lot faster in the Burning Crusade, both pre-best in slot but also best in slot, and on top of that, the amount of effort you possibly can put into reaching your best in slot each day is more limited in the Burning Crusade. So what's really left to do? Well, you might as well make an alt. If you can't get gear on your main, you can get gear on an alt. Although you have to redo the leveling from 60 to 70, supposing you have a bunch of alts from vanilla, it's at least something to do. Because eventually, your main will have obtained everything you can outside of raids, and raiding is done once or maybe twice per week. But leveling up an alt will give you a lot more things to do, meaning you can get more loot each week. I'm not saying loot is everything, but most people probably like getting upgrades to become stronger. Besides mounts and potential bragging rights, loot is really the main reward of the game. You could say that I'm saying that loot is almost everything. Not that there is anything wrong with just running around and having a good time, instead that's great, but in this kind of game, gameplay is oriented around a reward, usually gear, and the path towards that reward, meaning heroics, raids, reputation, professions, and so on and forth. Some people might dislike the outcome of this, that you eventually become very limited in options to improve your gear. People who prefer having only one character that they put all focus and effort on might find themselves having nothing to do. The reputations are grinded, the crafted items are done, the raids are on farm, and the badges have been collected. The only thing left to do now is either create an alt, which you might dislike, or just raid log. And what to do when you've gathered complete BIS? Well, we had an officer in my dysfunctional classic guild that for some reason suddenly had to work a lot more after he had gathered his BIS in each phase. He even convinced everyone that he should get the first on Tharian's tier. Needless to say, he disappeared for months every now and then. Oddly enough, always after he had just collected full BIS. Eventually he quit the guild and started playing Alliance instead, he and his friend, when his friend took her first look at mirror and quit the guild an hour later or so. But we've ganked both of them whenever we could ever since that, for a good year or so now. So that's been pretty fun actually. We aren't done with that yet, and they deserve it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with deciding to switch faction, but there's a lot of things wrong with betraying your guild, lying to everyone in it, and having them help you out and then giving nothing back. That's also called exploiting people. Like said, they deserve it. I don't usually gank, but I always make an exception for them. No remorse, no regrets, and not a single ounce of shame. Pieces of trash. Anyway, this is pretty much the situation with the Burning Crusade. Because the loot is obtained faster, or is a guaranteed reward after a medium-sized time investment, or is locked behind daily lockouts or whatever it might be, possibly even weekly lockouts, it eventually leads to some sort of content drought in the sense that there isn't really anything to do. It might seem odd, but the reward for being done with gearing is that there is a huge reduction in incentive for you to play the game. Rather, you're kind of punished, in the sense that the absence of reward is somewhat of a punishment. You could of course farm mounts, try to solo things, or push high rating in PvP, but there won't be any gear rewards from it. I'm not saying it's pointless to play the game, but I am saying that a lot of people probably will feel like there is less reason to log in. That's one of the primary differences between vanilla and the Burning Crusade. Because gear is much harder to obtain in vanilla, you simply always have more stuff to do. But that is not all. Another reason is the massive reduction in the amount of consumables you can use. A Fury Warrior in Classic that's pushing high performance might have a shopping list looking something like this. Elemental Sharpening Stone, Juju of Power, Juju of Might, Elixir of the Mongoose, a potential Flask of the Titans, Smoked Desert Dumplings, Rumsey Rum Black Label, Ground Scorpion Assay, Roids, Spirit of Sansa or Swiftness of Sansa, Goblin Sapper Charges, Dense Dynamites, Greater Stone Shield Potions, Mighty Rage Potion, Elixir of Fortitude, Free Action Potion, Limited Invulnerability Potion, Restorative Potions, Heavy Runecloth Bandage, and a bunch of protection potions such as Greater Fire Protection Potion, Arcane Protection, and Shadow Protection. Meanwhile, a Fury Warrior in the Burning Crusade might want these things: Flask of Relentless Assault, or Elixir of Major Agility and a nice Guardian Elixir, Roasted Clefhoof or Spicy Hot Bulk if you need hit, Haste Potions, Heavy Netherweave Bandage, Scroll of Strength and Agility, some Sapper Charges, Super Sapper Charges that is if you're Engineer, or some Drums of Battle if you're Leatherworker. And that's it. Warriors might actually still prefer Elixir of the Mongoose because it gives slightly more crit rating and slightly less agility. Just getting all the consumables for raiding in vanilla took a while, at least if you wanted everything you could get. And just the vanilla flask itself probably costed as much as all the consumables you needed in the Burning Crusade combined, possibly even without taking inflation into consideration. The average raider is often expected to do almost everything he or she can to maximize their output, meaning they had to get most of the items on the vanilla shopping list. Even though you have to do the same in the Burning Crusade, the list is only 1/4 of what it used to be. So supposing you had gathered every piece of loot you could outside raids in Classic Vanilla, which for a lot of players included rank 13 and rank 14 PvP gear, as they were technically BIS, although very demanding to obtain. You probably still had to farm either gold or materials for raid consumables, because you could still chase high parses at least, and when chasing those parses you of course need every bit of advantage you can get. In TBC you simply don't have to spend as much time farming gold or materials. So there was kind of always something to do in Classic Vanilla, at least more than there is in the Burning Crusade. And to a large extent, it's because everything was simply slower in Vanilla. The leveling, the dungeons, the raids, the preparation for raids. For a lot of players that didn't have enough time to play Classic Vanilla, the Burning Crusade is likely a great option. But for those who did have the time to play Classic Vanilla, well, most of them are probably finding themselves now with nothing to do. If you've found yourself in that position, it might be a good idea giving ALTS a go. Or find yourself a different challenge. Or even try a different game. It really seems like the Burning Crusade will be a lot of raid logging, and people will have to find something to do. Getting gear is pretty fun, and raiding is fun, and well, having something to do is more fun than not having anything to do. So making at least one alt to raid log twice a week makes sense. But of course, a major reason as of why people run into this thing is that we play the game a lot. Many of the more casual players who either don't spend many hours almost every day, or at least don't play the game in a very goal-oriented way, might still have loads of things to do. Although it's likely the case that many players are starting to experience some sort of, well, lack of things to do in the game, even the more casual-oriented ones nowadays. But for some people, this is something positive, as it gives them time to do other things and still be on top of the game. And that is pretty good in my opinion, but for many others it's probably just a bit boring. Regardless, I hope you still enjoy the game and find yourself having the amount of things to do that you would prefer. Personally, I've leveled and geared both a Protection Warrior and a Feral Druid tank to the point where I really only have raid logging left to do. I guess I need a few more heroics on the warrior, but not really. Maybe it's time to level a Protection Paladin so I can play all 3 tanks, who knows. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe. If there isn't too much to do in the game, at least you can watch videos about the game, so make sure not to miss out on these ones, so like and subscribe. Anyway, I'll be back soon with another video, and until then, see ya!